Picture this. It's 2 years after your divorce. On paper, you won. You kept the house, got the parenting schedule you asked for. Your lawyer never lost a single hearing, not one. And yet here you are at the kitchen table, late, doing math that will not add up. The retirement account got split in a way no one flagged for you. The value they put on the business was a number you never thought to question. The whole thing dragged 18 months longer than it needed to, and you paid for every one of those months in dollars and in pieces of your life you don't get back. You didn't lose in court, you lost in the quiet. And the cruelest part is that no one ever told you that that was even possible. So let me tell you now, at the very start, the thing I wish someone had told me. You can hire the wrong divorce attorney, win every hearing, and still lose a fortune. It doesn't show up as defeat. It shows up as a life you're living 5 years later. Now picture a different person. Same fear, same stakes, same messy marriage coming apart at the seams. But this one walked in holding a framework. They interviewed 3 attorneys instead of hiring the first one who sounded confident. They asked the questions almost no one thinks to ask. They chose the right person for their actual situation, not the loudest one in the room. And 2 years later, they're not doing anxious math at midnight. They're just living. Same divorce, wildly different ending. And the only variable that really changed was how they chose. Today, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen to you. Welcome to the Conscious Divorce Podcast. I'm Justin Milrad. If this is your first time here, let me tell you fast what this show is and what it's not. This is not a place where we treat divorce as the end of your story. This is a place where we treat it as a hinge, a hard, painful, clarifying hinge between the life you had and the life you're about to build. I call that process U 2.0. 3 phases. Reclaim what is yours, reboot the systems of your life, and become the person on the other side who is somehow more whole than the one who walked in. Now the disclaimer, and I want you to actually hear this one. I am not an attorney. I'm not a therapist. I'm a certified divorce coach, financial planner, and MBA. Before this work, I spent years running a behavioral health organization and helping build a mental health nonprofit. So I come at divorce from the exact place where money, strategy, and the human nervous system all crash into each other. Nothing I say today is legal advice. It is something that might be even more useful. It's the education you need in order to hire good legal advice. Because here's what I've watched happen over and over to smart, capable, successful people. They walk into the single most important financial decision of their lives with no framework for making it. At the precise moment, their judgment is the most compromised it will ever be. There's a name for the gap between what your attorney knows and what you know. Economists call it information asymmetry. Today, we close it. There's a marketing guy I've learned a lot from named Joe Polish. Years ago, he wrote this now famous little guide for people hiring a carpet cleaner, of all things. He didn't sell them. He just taught them, honestly, how the industry worked, what the tricks were, what to ask. And people trusted him completely because he was the only one telling the truth. That idea rewired how I think. So in this episode, it's not a pitch. It's the carpet cleaner guide for the most expensive room in your life. Let me teach you how this actually works. And before we dive in, one thing to follow away right now. I built a free tool that walks you through this entire decision step by step. How to choose a divorce lawyer without losing a fortune. I'm not going to make you hunt for it. Stick with me all the way to the end, and I'll tell you exactly how to get your hands on it. No charge, no catch. For now, just know it's sitting there waiting for you. Let me tell you why I really care about this one. I've done hard things on purpose. I've stood at the start line of a triathlon at dawn, in the cold, when every rational cell in my body wanted to be home in a warm bed. Endurance racing teaches you something you can't learn any other way. The race is not one in the moment you feel strong. It's one in the boring middle, in the pacing, in the decisions you make before you're tired, so that when the pain comes, and it always comes, you're running a plan instead of running on panic. Divorce is an endurance event. And here's the tragedy. Most people sprint the first mile. They make the biggest, most expensive decision of their entire race, choosing their attorney while their heart rate is redlined and the whole system is screaming threat. I know that feeling from the inside because I've been through my own divorce. I sat in the conference room under the bad fluorescent light. I have felt that sporadic, lonely terror of realizing that the person across the table had done this 1,000 times, and I was doing it exactly once during the worst quarter of my life. And here's what I'll tell you, looking back with clear eyes. My attorney was genuinely smart and strategic. If I had the whole thing to do over again, I would probably still choose him. That's not my regret. My regret is the strategy. Knowing what I know now, I would have played it very differently, and I would have pushed for a very different path in the same place. Because here's a hard truth about my own case, and I share it because it might save you from mine. The outcome we fought for, all the way to the bitter end, was very likely the same outcome we could have reached without the war. Same result, but we would have saved 7 figures in legal fees. 7. And we have not spent 8 days in front of a jury, putting the most private details of our life on a table for strangers to weigh and judge. Let that land, because I actually lived it. Same destination, a fortune, and a piece of my privacy spent getting there in the hardest way possible. That is exactly the kind of quiet, expensive loss I never want you to sign up for with your eyes wide open. Here's what saved me, or at least what I wish I had learned sooner. My background is in financial planning. So underneath all that fear, there was a quieter voice asking the question a planner asks. What is this actually going to cost me? Not the fee, the cost. What is the opportunity cost of dragging this out another 6 months? Where's my real leverage? What am I not seeing? That voice is the thing I want to install in you today, so that when you choose, fear is not the only thing in the room. And I want to say something about that fear from the mental health side of my life, because it matters. When we feel threatened, the thinking part of the brain goes quiet and the survival part takes over. That is a wonderful design if a bear is chasing you. It's a catastrophe if you're trying to evaluate a retainer agreement. So a huge part of choosing well is simply refusing to choose from that state. The framework we're about to build is not just information. It's a way to get your thinking brain back in the driver's seat at the moment you need it most. Because the stakes here are not abstract. For a lot of people I work with, and maybe for you, the marital estate is not just a house and car. It's the equity compensation, a business you built, retirement accounts stacked over decades, maybe a trust, maybe kids with needs that don't end at 18. Choose a wrong translator for all of that, and you'll not lose in some dramatic courtroom scene. You'll lose in a spreadsheet that no one read close enough. And before we go one step further, let me say the thing you might actually need to hear. If you're in the middle of this right now and you feel underwater and you can't quite believe you're the person Googling how to hire a divorce lawyer, listen to me. You're not failing. This is genuinely one of the hardest, most disorienting things a human being goes through. The fog is real. The exhaustion is real. That feeling of not being able to make a clean decision to save your life is real. None of it means you're weak. It means you're a person in the middle of something enormous. So here's the deal for the next hour. We're going to be gentle with the human and ruthless with the strategy, both at the same time. And there's one more thing I want you to understand about the shape of this, because it will save your sanity. The emotional timeline and the legal timeline are two completely different clocks, and they almost never line up. Legally, you might be moving along just fine, hitting your milestones. Emotionally, you can be in absolute pieces on the very same day. That gap is normal. It's not a sign the process is broken, and it's not a sign that you are. Knowing that the two clocks are separate is what lets you keep making sound legal decisions, even on the days your heart is not. So let us build the framework. Let us make you the most prepared person in that consultation. Let's talk about the 8 hats your attorney wears. Start here. When you hire a divorce attorney, you think you're hiring a litigator. You're not. Over the life of your case, that one human being has to play 8 completely different roles, and almost nobody is equally strong in all 8. Knowing which ones your case actually needs is the beginning of choosing well. Hat number 1, the strategist, the one who figures out what your case is really about before spending a dollar arguing. Hat 2, the negotiator, the one who turns your position into signed terms without lighting the whole building on fire. Hat 3, the risk manager, the one who will tell you honestly what a judge might do on a bad day instead of what you want to hear. Hat 4, the financial translator, the one who can read a K1, a vesting schedule, a trust document, and turn money into a legal argument. For a lot of you listening, this hat is the entire game. Let me make that one concrete, because it's where real money quietly walks out the door. I've seen equity compensation, restricted stock that vests over 4 years, handled by rushed attorneys as if it were one simple number on one simple day. It's not. How you value it, when it vests, whether it counts as marital or separate, that single issue can swing more money than an entire bill in either direction. If your state has instruments like that in it, the financial translator is not the one hat among 8. It's the hat, and everything else is secondary. Hat 5, the litigator, the one who can actually perform under fire if your case has to be tried. Hat 6, the project manager, the unglamorous one who keeps a 9-month process from quietly becoming an 18-month process while the meter runs. Hat 7, the crisis manager, the one who keeps you from sending the 2 a.m. emails that cost you custody. And Hat 8, the trusted advisor, The one who tells you the truth, you are paying specifically so that you have that one person in your life willing to say it. Here's why it matters so much. The most aggressive litigator in your city, the one with the reputation and the billboard energy, might be the single worst choice if what your case actually needs is a clean, fast, financially sophisticated settlement. Strength in the wrong hat is not an asset you're buying. It's a liability you're paying a premium for. You're not hiring the best attorney. You're hiring the best fit attorney. Write that on your hand before the meeting if you have to. And let me be completely unambiguous about one thing, because people mishear this part. None of this means skip the lawyer. You need an attorney. Please don't try to do this without one. What it means is that the attorneys are not interchangeable. They're not all the same. They have genuinely different skill sets, different temperaments, different strengths. You absolutely need one on your side. You just need the right one for your case, not simply the first one or the loudest one or the most famous one. Why fit beats reputation, which brings me to the most misunderstood word in this entire process, fit. Reputation tells you an attorney was excellent for someone else's case. It tells you nothing about yours. The trial legend who wins a 7-figure verdict may have zero patience for two decent people who simply want to co-parent well for the next 15 years. The gentle mediator with a soothing voice may be exactly the wrong person to seat across from a spouse who's hiding assets and daring you to catch them. Fit is the match of 4 things: the nature of your case, the temperament of your spouse and their lawyer, your own goals for the next chapter of your life, and the specific strengths of that person sitting in front of you. When those 4 line up, ordinary attorneys produce extraordinary outcomes. When they don't, brilliant attorneys produce very expensive disasters. Let me show you 2 failure modes side by side because they are mirror images. Take a warrior attorney and put them on a gentle, collaborative case, and they will manufacture a war that never needed to happen, bill you for every minute of it, and poison the co-parenting well for years. Now take a gentle peacemaker and seat them across from a spouse who is lying and hiding money, and they will get quietly, politely, thoroughly destroyed. Same 2 attorneys, both genuinely excellent, both catastrophically mismatched. The skill was never the problem. The fit was. I think about it the way I think about hiring anyone great. Dan Sullivan has this idea he calls who, not how. You don't solve a hard problem by grinding harder by yourself. You go find the right who. But here's the part people skip. The right who is situational. The right who for a knife fight is the wrong person for a peace treaty. So your first job is not to find the sharpest knife in town. Your first job is to get honest with yourself about which kind of ending you're actually trying to reach. Choose your process before you choose a person. And that leads to a decision almost everyone skips entirely. Before you choose a person, you choose your process. Because there is not one kind of divorce. There are 4 roads, and they differ enormously in what they cost you, in money and in time, and in damage to the very people you're trying hardest to protect. Road 1 is uncontested. You and your spouse already agree on the big things. Process mostly documents that agreement and moves it through the court. The fastest, cheapest road when it genuinely applies to you. Road 2 is mediated. A neutral third party helps the 2 of you negotiate your own terms, often with each of you getting advice from an attorney on the side. Structured, cooperative, and dramatically cheaper than a war. And here's the lever inside mediation that almost nobody pulls. Preparation. Mediation that is genuinely well prepared, where you walk in clear on your numbers, your priorities, and your true non-negotiables. They tend to be shorter, calmer, and far cheaper. Mediation you wander into unprepared drags on, heats up, and quietly bills you for every extra hour. The preparation is where the savings actually live, long before you ever sit down at that table. Road 3 is collaborative. Both spouses and specially trained attorneys sign a commitment to solve everything out of court, sharing neutral experts instead of hurling dueling ones at each other. And here's the elegant part. If it collapses and heads to litigation, those attorneys have to withdraw, which means everyone at the table has real skin in making it work. Road 4 is litigated. A judge decides what the 2 of you couldn't. The most formal, most expensive, most adversarial road. Sometimes it's the only responsible choice when there's hidden money or bad faith or a genuine safety issue for yourself and or your kids. But it shouldn't be a decision you make on purpose, not a default you back into because no one told you the other roads exist. I have to say this part as plainly as I can because it's the part that keeps me up at night. Conflict is not just expensive. It's one of the strongest predictors we now have of your kids coming out on the other side of this. The research on high conflict divorce and the long-term outcome for children is deep and it's sobering. So every road that lowers the temperature is not only cheaper, It's a form of protection for the people you love the most. So how do you know which road is actually yours? Ask yourself a few honest questions. Do the two of you still agree on the big things, or are you miles apart? Is there some trust left, or is someone hiding the ball? Are there kids, and how much do you need to protect that relationship after the ink dries? Is anyone unsafe? Your honest answers point you at a road. And here's what I see over and over. When people answer honestly, most of them discover they belong on a calmer road than the one their fear was shoving them towards. I did a whole episode a while back on what I call the 2-degree shift. The idea that a tiny change in direction over a long enough distance lands you somewhere completely different. This is at the highest possible stakes. Choosing the collaborative road over the litigated one is a 2-degree turn at the very start of a very long trip. It doesn't feel dramatic in the moment you make it, but it quietly changes the entire destination. Choose a process before you choose a person. The right attorney for a collaborative divorce is almost never the right attorney for a trial. Now, one legal fact that changes everything, and most people don't learn about it until it's already shaping their settlement. Your state divides property under one of two systems. In community property states, most of what you built during the marriage gets split right down the middle. In equitable distribution states, which are the majority, a court divides things fairly, and fair doesn't automatically mean equal. It means a judge weighing a whole list of factors and deciding what is fair to them. Same exact facts, two different states, genuinely different outcomes. A person in California is playing a different game than a person in New York on the same board with the same pieces. So before you apply a single piece of financial strategy from me or from anyone, find out which system your state uses. It changes what leverage you actually have. It's the kind of thing you want to know in week 1, not in month 9. And it's not academic. Say you were the higher earner and you built most of the estate. In a community property state, that origin story may not matter very much. It gets split down the middle either way. In an equitable distribution state, the story of who contributed what can genuinely move the number. Same fact, different leverage. If you don't know which world you're standing in, you can't know what is actually worth fighting. Let me pause for a few seconds because this is a part of the show where I ask you for one small favor. If any of this is landing, if you're hearing things that no one bothered to tell you, do me a favor. Follow this podcast wherever you're listening to it right now. Just hit follow or subscribe. Hit the like. And if you can think of one person who's standing at the start of this or in the thick of it right now, send them this episode. I don't run ads on this show. The only way it reaches the next person who needs it at 2 a.m. is you passing it forward. That's the whole ask. Follow and share it with one person. Thank you, truly. Okay, back to the work, because the next part is where the money actually hides. Let's talk about the mistakes that cost the most. There's a long list of ways people choose badly. I'm going to give you the ones that cost the most. The ones I see again and again in capable people who simply were never taught what to look for. Mistake 1, choosing on the hourly rate alone. The rate is the only number that is easy to compare, so a scared buyer clings to it like a life raft. But a $400 attorney who needs 40 hours is cheaper than a $250 attorney who needs 100. You're not buying a rate, you're buying a total cost and an outcome. Mistake 2, believing aggressive equals effective. Aggression looks like advocacy when you're frightened and you want an avenger. But manufactured conflict multiplies your fees, hardens the other side, and can wreck your co-parenting for a decade. Aggression is a tool, it's not a strategy. Mistake 3, confusing confidence with competence. The most confident person in the room is very often the least informed about your specific situation. Certainty is soothing. It predicts nothing. And please do not walk from anyone who guarantees you an outcome. No ethical attorney on earth does that. Mistake 4, not asking who actually does the work. You get sold by the impressive partner and then served by an associate you never met and never evaluated. Ask it directly. Who staffs my case day to day and at what rate? Mistake 5, hiring the attorney your friend loved. Your friend's amicable low conflict divorce has almost nothing in common with your contested business valuation. I will say it again because it's the whole point. Fit does not transfer. Mistake 6, waiting too long out of hope. You put off the consultation because scheduling it makes it real. But the earliest moves shape everything downstream. The financial records, the story, the temporary orders. Delay quietly forfeits options you can't get back. And mistake 7, the big one, the quiet killer, letting raw emotion choose your counsel. Fear and anger are loud, and they want a warrior for your worst moment. They will select the attorney who best matches your rage, not the one who protects your future. The angriest choice is almost never the wisest one. Mistake 8, falling for the office. A gorgeous lobby, marble, a view of walled diplomas, all of it signals success, and success calms your fears. But you're not buying the marble. You might be paying for it, folded into your hourly rate, and getting no better outcome for it. Overhead is not the same thing as competence. And mistake 9, the one that quietly sabotages all the others, interviewing only a single attorney. Without a second and third conversation, you have no benchmark at all. You cannot tell excellent from average or from poor because you're grading on a curve of exactly one. I will say this as clearly as I can. The single highest return hour of your entire divorce is the second consultation because it's the one that finally teaches you what the first one actually was. James Clear has this line I think about all the time. We don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. Your emotional state is not a system. A framework is. That's the entire reason we're building one right now, together, while you're calm instead of leaving it for the moment you're not. Let's talk about money, because I promised you the planner's voice, and this is where it earns its keep. Most divorce work is billed by the hour, in tenths of an hour. Every call, every email, every document review is time, and time is money. You usually pay a retainer up front, and here's the thing almost everyone gets wrong. A retainer is not the price, it's a deposit. It sits in a trust account. The firm bills against it as they work. And when it runs low, you refill it. In a contested case, sometimes more than once. Understand that one mechanic, and you've just avoided the most common billing shock in all of divorce. So where do the fees actually explode? Almost never from the base rate. They explode from discovery, from depositions, from experts, from motion practice, and from the single biggest hidden driver of all, emotional escalation. Every ounce of conflict you generate is conflict that you pay your attorney at hourly rates to sit and process. Your anger has a price, and it's printed on an invoice. Let me pull the curtain back on where a big contested bill really goes, so that none of it can ambush you. A chunk to your attorney's own time, a chunk to associates and paralegals, then discovery and document review, then depositions, then the experts, the forensic accountants, the business valuator, the court appearances and motion practice. Stack up all of that, and you can see exactly why the uncontested version of the same divorce can cost a small fraction of the litigated one. The road you choose at the very start is doing most of this math for you, long before you ever see the bill. And here is a specific kind of waste to watch for, because it's pure fee inflation, and it helped run on my own bill. When the other side sends over a document, a good attorney redlines it. Redlining just means they mark up that existing document, tracking their edits right on top of it, so everyone can see exactly what changed and why. It is fast and it's clean. But some attorneys will not do that. They throw the whole thing out and rewrite it from scratch in their own preferred style, which generates hours of billing and then forces the other side to re-review what is essentially a brand new document. Nothing about this outcome improved. The clock just ran. So when you're interviewing, you can literally ask how they handle documents the other side sends over. The answer tells you whether they respect your money or your meter. So here's a money saver that will do more for your bill than any haggling over rate ever could. You're the cheapest labor on your own case. Show up organized. Hand over your documents in one clean batch, not a slow dripping trickle. Batch your questions into scheduled calls instead of a river of one-off emails at all hours. Never, ever use your $400 an hour attorney as your therapist. That's what a coach or an actual therapist is for, at a fraction of the price and honestly done better. And two options that most people never even think to ask about. One, flat fees for discrete, predictable pieces of work, like drafting a settlement agreement or preparing a retirement order. Some attorneys will quote you a fixed price, so at least part of your bill becomes known and calm instead of open-ended. Two, unbundled help, sometimes called limited scope representation. You hire an attorney for specific tasks only. Review this document. Coach me before this mediation. Handle this one hearing, and you carry the rest yourself. It is recognized in most states, and for a case that is mostly simple with a couple of genuinely complicated pieces, it can cut your cost dramatically. You don't always have to buy the whole case. And let me name one specific competence that is worth real money, because it's invisible until it's too late. Taxes. How you divide assets carries enormous tax consequences, and they are almost never obvious on the surface. Which account the money came out of? Who takes which asset? How support is characterized and structured? All of it changes what you actually keep after the government takes its cut. An attorney who genuinely understands the tax side, working alongside your financial analyst, can save you more than their entire fee in a single, well-structured settlement. So ask them directly how they think about the tax consequences of a split. The Confident answers and the blank stares, they're both extremely informative. And now the counterintuitive part, the one I most want you to carry out of here. Cheap is very often the most expensive choice you can make because the fee is not the cost. The fee is what you pay the lawyer. The cost is what the whole divorce takes from your life, the settlement terms, the taxes, the asset no one valued correctly, the opportunity you couldn't chase because the thing dragged on and on. A stronger, more expensive attorney who catches one misvalued asset can save you many multiples of the entire fee. Optimize for the wrong number and you will win the invoice without losing the divorce. You don't pay the attorney's fee. You pay the difference between the outcome you got and the outcome you could have had. The interview and the one question that reveals everything. So how do you actually tell them apart in a room in an hour? You interview them and you flip the frame completely. A consultation is a job interview and you are the employer. Most people show up grateful for their lawyer's time and leave with nothing. Not you, not anymore. You're going to walk in with your priorities already ranked and your questions already written down. Ask them, based on what I've told you, what is your initial theory of my case? A good attorney can actually answer that in the first meeting. Ask, what is your response time and who's my day-to-day contact? Ask, what is your best estimate of my total cost in ranges? And what are the 3 things most likely to push it higher? Ask, how do you decide when to settle and when to fight? Ask, how do you handle temporary orders so that we don't set damaging precedents in the first 30 days? Because early arrangements have a way of quietly becoming permanent ones. If your life has any real complexity in it, test for it right there. Ask how they handle equity compensation or a business valuation or cryptocurrency or a trust or the tax consequences of a proposed split. Watch their eyes. Fluency shows up fast, and so does the glaze. If you have kids, ask how they protect co-parenting from the damage of litigation and how they handle a spouse who tries to weaponize the children. If your case might actually be tried, ask when they last tried one like yours and how it turned out. If it's going to settle, and most cases do, ask how they prepare for negotiation and how they keep conflict from boiling over when it counts. You are not being difficult by asking all of this. You're being exactly the employer that you are. And here's something most people get backwards, and it will shape the rest of your life. So much energy in a divorce pours into the division of assets. That matters. Of course it does. But many attorneys spend almost all of their attention there and nowhere near enough on the parenting plan. And the parenting plan is the thing you will actually live inside week after week for years. A great parenting plan does not just solve for today. It builds in ages and stages. The schedule that works for a toddler is not the schedule that works for a 12-year-old. And it's not the one that works for a 16-year-old with a job and a social life. If you build those transitions in now on purpose, you spare yourself from dragging everyone back to court every few years to renegotiate a plan your kids simply outgrew. So ask directly, how much attention will you give the parenting plan? And do you build in ages and stages? Your answer tells you whether they're thinking about your assets or your children's actual lives. And then ask the one question that separates a salesperson from an advocate. Ask them this, what is the hardest truth you would tell me about my situation right now? Let that question breathe, a beat. Now listen closely to the answer. An attorney who only flatters you is selling you. An attorney who tells you something you didn't want to hear is representing you. Brene Brown built an entire body of work on the courage it takes to have the honest, uncomfortable conversation. That is the exact courage you want in your lawyer on day one, not the person who smiles and promises you a win. And here's a discipline that ties it all together. After every consultation, before the charm wears off, you score them. Same 10 dimensions every single time. Experience, communication, strategy, financial sophistication, negotiation, trial ability, responsiveness, integrity, emotional intelligence, and the resources standing behind that. Rate each one. Weigh the ones your case actually needs the most, because memory is a liar. After 3 consultations, you will remember the most charming attorney, not the best one. A simple scorecard is how you protect yourself from your own mind at the worst possible time to trust it. Red flags, green flags. Quick round. First, the red flags, the things that should stop you cold. An attorney who guarantees an outcome, who cannot estimate your total cost in ranges, who trashes every other lawyer in town, who is somehow unreachable during the sales process when they're supposed to be trying the hardest to win you, who fuels your anger instead of steadying you, who is vague and slippery about who actually does the work. Now the green flags. And these matter even more because they tell you what to run towards, not just what to run from. An exceptional attorney tells you the hard truth early, estimates costs honestly, even when it's not what you want to hear, listens more than they sell, explains the why behind a strategy, not just the what, escalates on purpose, never by reflex. And here's my personal favorite. They tell you when you're being unreasonable, because a lawyer who will manage your expectations is worth 10 who will just nod and agree with you all the way into bankruptcy. And now a mirror, and I'm going to hold it up gently. They're evaluating you too. The best clients come organized. They separate the emotion from the strategic. They follow good advice or they ask why. They keep the kids out of the middle. They play the long game. You can't control everything about your divorce, but you can absolutely control what kind of client you are. Become the one that great attorneys actually fight to represent. Two insider plays no one tells you. Let me give you two things the professionals know that consumers almost never hear. The first is digital hygiene. And this might be the most valuable 90 seconds of the whole episode. Assume that everything you post can end up in your case. Photos, check-ins, purchases, messages. All of it gets used to challenge what you've said about your income, your lifestyle, your parenting. The safest posture during a divorce is near silence. Posting nothing about your divorce, nothing about your money, nothing about your dating life, and nothing about your spouse. And here's the newest version of this trap. And it's built precisely for people like you and me, the ones who reach for a smart tool the second we have a problem. Do not pour your case into the public AI chatbot. Your conversations with a public AI tool are generally not privileged. In some situations, the other side may be able to get their hands on them. Use those tools to learn about divorce in general if you want to. Never put your specific strategy, your admissions, or your assets into one. The cheapest mistake to avoid in your entire divorce is a message you didn't need to send. Silence costs nothing and it protects everything. The second insider play is for the higher stakes situations, and it has a name: conflicting out. In a smaller legal market, a spouse who wants an edge can quietly book quick consultations with all of the top divorce attorneys in town. They don't have to hire a single one of them. The consultation by itself can be enough to create a conflict, which means the lawyer can no longer represent you. Run it right, and they leave you choosing for their second tier. You can't always stop it, but you can beat them to it. If you have any reason to think your spouse will fight dirty, move fast and get your top choices into a consultation before your spouse can lock them up. In this one specific situation, speed is not panic, speed is protection. Your team and which one you are. One more reframe, and it's a genuinely freeing one. Your attorney is a quarterback. They are not the entire team. Trying to force one very expensive person to do every single job is exactly how fees spiral and quality drops. The strongest divorces are run by a small coordinated team. A certified divorce financial analyst, a CDFA, to model how a settlement actually plays out over years, after taxes instead of just today's split. A forensic accountant if money's being hidden, a therapist for your mental health, and a qualified divorce coach. Let me be honest about the last one, because it's my world and it's genuinely the highest leverage seat on the whole team. A good divorce coach, and especially one who comes from a financial background, is invaluable. Not because they replace anyone, because they make everyone else on your team more effective and cheaper. They help you walk into every meeting better prepared. They help you ask sharper, more focused questions. They help you prepare properly for mediation so that it runs shorter and calmer. And they are your thought partner and your accountability partner through the entire thing at a fraction of what you'd pay a lawyer to sit in that role at hourly rates. This is not a luxury item. For most people, it pays for itself many times over, purely in the legal fees it quietly saves. And it helps enormously to know who you're in this, because the right attorney is different depending on the person. Maybe you're the entrepreneur and the whole game is protecting the business you built. Maybe you're the executive with the pile of equity compensation that no one has properly valued. Maybe you're the protector trying to shield your kids from a contentious spouse. Maybe you're just a stay-at-home parent, securing fair support and rebuilding your own footing after years of pouring yourself into everyone else. Each of these people need a different kind of lawyer, a different set of questions, and a different definition of winning. So before you choose, get clear on which one you are. And there are more of these than you might think. Maybe you're the peacekeeper, and what you want most is a fair ending with your dignity intact. Maybe you're the survivor, getting out of something genuinely hard, and what you need most is a clean, safe exit. Maybe you're the privacy seeker, and keeping this quiet is worth more to you than winning at any single point. There's no shame in any of these. The whole point is simply to know, because the moment you can name who you are, you can name what you actually need, and you finally stop shopping for someone else's divorce. Tony Robbins has this idea that the quality of your life comes down to the quality of your decisions, and the quality of your decisions comes down to the state you are in when you make them. This is the whole ball game right here. You can't control that your marriage is ending, but you can absolutely control the state you're in and the framework you're holding on to at the moment you choose the person who walks right beside you. And if your situation is one of the truly complicated ones, screen for it first. before anything else, if you have cryptocurrency, which is easy to hide and hard to value, you need someone genuinely fluent in it. If you're a military family, federal rules can override state laws in ways that will surprise you. If you're divorcing later in life, so-called gray divorce, the whole game becomes retirement assets, Social Security timing, and the simple fact that you have less runway to recover. If any of that is you, relevant experience is not a nice bonus. It's a filter you can apply before you evaluate anything else about this attorney. After the decree, the reboot. And then one day it's over. The decree is signed, and here's the last thing that no one prepares you for. Most guides, and honestly, most lawyers stop at this signature. But your financial life doesn't end there. It begins there. Two things trip up even sophisticated people in the first stretch: housing and credit. If you're keeping the house, you usually have to get your former spouse off the mortgage and just assume through that financing. In a higher rate world, refinancing can be brutal, trading a great old interest rate for a painful new one. So ask about mortgage assumption instead. Taking over the existing loan at its original rate rather than replacing it is not always available, but when it is, it can save you a small fortune. And protect your ability to qualify for credit on your own, because a divorce can quietly damage your borrowing power at the exact moment you need it most. Model all of that before you sign, while the terms can still be challenged. And this is where my whole philosophy finally comes home. Reclaim, reboot, become. The decree is not the finish line. It's a transition zone. In a triathlon, the transition is the messy space between one discipline and the next. And it's where races are quietly won and lost. Your divorce is a transition. And what you do inside it, how deliberately you choose, how clearly you can think of every instinct in you wants to react, that's what determines the athlete who comes out on the other side. I grew up in Toronto, so I came into this world believing you can get hit hard, get back up, and keep skating. That belief has carried me through more than one season of my life that I honestly didn't think I'd survive. My own divorce was one of them, and I'm a Grateful Dead guy at heart, which means somewhere along the way, I made peace with the fact that the road is long and strange, and it almost never goes where you planned. A straight line was never the goal. The goal is to still be moving and to be more yourself at the end of the road than you were at the start of it. And I can tell you from this side of it that there is a real life waiting out there, because I'm living it. I rebuilt. I'm about to marry someone I love and I'm so compatible with. I co-parent kids I would do anything for. The person talking to you right now is more whole than when he walked in. That's not a promise that any of this is easy. It's proof that it's possible. So let us bring it home. If you remember nothing else from this last hour, remember this. You can win every hearing and still lose. So don't play to win the fight. Play to win the next decade of your life. Choose your process before you choose your person. Interview more than one and score them honestly. Match the attorney to your situation, not your fear, and ask the hardest truth questions. Then hire the one who is brave enough to actually answer it. You are not powerless here. The only reason people lose in this quiet is that no one ever taught them what to look for. Well, now you know. That gap, the information asymmetry that used to work against you, is gone. You closed it today. So here's your homework this week, and it's short. 1. Find out whether your state is community property or equitable distribution. 5 minutes online. 2. Decide honestly which of your 4 roads of divorce you actually want. 3. Book consultations with 3 attorneys, not 1. 4. Walk in with your questions written down, including the hardest truth question. And 5. Score each of them the moment you leave the room before the charm wears off. Do those 5 things and you will already be choosing more wisely than almost anyone who's ever sat in the chair before you. And here's the real reason all of this matters. One day, this will be behind you, and you're going to look back on how you handled it. I don't want you looking back with regret, wishing you'd been calmer or smarter or better prepared at the moment it counted the most. You get one shot at doing this well, so do your divorce right. Not perfectly, not without pain. There's no version without pain, but right, on purpose, with your eyes open and your team around you, and a framework in your hands instead of just fear. That is the whole reason this show exists. And here, I put together a complete guide to choosing the right divorce attorney. The same framework we talked about today: how to interview them, how to score them, the exact questions to ask, the red flags to run from, all of it in one place, and it's free. You can grab it along with my other tools and resources at www.reclaimandreboot.me/resources. Go get it. It's the thing I most wish I had someone hand me at the start. If you want to go deeper, everything I do lives at www.reclaimandreboot.me. I've written this whole rebuild down in my books, U 2.0, Divorce: A Better Way Forward, and the workbook that goes with it. And if co-parenting is your world right now, there is the co-parenting playbook. And if you just want to talk to a human being who genuinely gets it, I offer a free 30-minute consultation. No pitch, no pressure, just a real conversation about where you are and where you want to go. The link is in the show notes. One last time, if this helped you, follow the show and send it to the one person you know who needs it right now. That's how it reaches them. I'm Justin Milrad. This has been the Conscious Divorce Podcast. Be strategic, be kind to yourself, and keep moving forward. I'll see you next time.